Sarah thought she was the perfect mother until she found the letter hidden under her 12-year-old son's bed that made her question everything she believed about parenting. Did you know that 87% of parents feel like they're failing their children every single day? If you've ever felt like you're drowning in the chaos of raising kids, this story will change how you see parenting forever. Today, I'm sharing real stories from parents who discovered that sometimes the biggest parenting wins come from our most painful failures. These aren't just stories. They're life lessons that every parent needs to hear. But first, let me tell you about Sarah's discovery that shattered her world. Sarah Williams sat in her spotless kitchen, sipping coffee from her favorite mug that read "World's Best Mom." The morning sun streamed through her perfectly clean windows, casting light on the organized chaos of family life. Her two children, Michael, 12, and Emma, 8, were getting ready for school with military precision, just the way Sarah liked it. "Michael, your lunch is on the counter. Emma, your backpack is by the door," Sarah called out, checking items off her mental list. She prided herself on being organized, efficient, and always 3 steps ahead of any problem. Other parents in their Lagos neighborhood often asked Sarah for advice. "How do you make it look so easy?" they'd wonder. Sarah would smile and share her secrets. Strict schedules, clear rules, and consistent discipline. She had parenting figured out, or so she thought. That afternoon, while cleaning Michael's room, Sarah found it. A crumpled piece of paper wedged between his mattress and the wall. At first, she almost threw it away, just another piece of homework, she assumed. But something made her unfold it. The words hit her like a punch to the stomach. "I hate living in this house. My mom thinks she's perfect, but she makes me feel like nothing I do is ever good enough. I wish I could disappear." Sarah's hands trembled as she read her son's words. Below that, in his messy handwriting, was a list titled "Things I Can't Tell Mom." "I failed my math test last week. I'm scared of disappointing you. I cry sometimes at night. I don't want to play piano anymore. I feel lonely even when we're together." The coffee mug slipped from Sarah's other hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. But she barely noticed. Her perfect world was crumbling around her. Sarah had always believed that being a good parent meant having control. Rules for everything. Schedules that ran like clockwork. High expectations that pushed her children to succeed. She thought she was raising strong, disciplined kids who would thank her later. But Michael's letter revealed a different truth. While Sarah was busy being the perfect parent, she had forgotten to be the parent her son actually needed. That evening, Sarah sat across from her husband, David, at their dining table. The children were in their rooms, supposedly doing homework. Sarah showed him the letter. David read it quietly, his face growing sadder with each word. When he finished, he looked at his wife with gentle eyes. "Sarah, I've been wanting to talk to you about this for months," he said softly. "You're an amazing mother, but what?" Sarah's voice cracked. "But sometimes I think you love the idea of being perfect more than you love just being with our kids." The words stung because they were true. Sarah realized she had been so focused on being the parent she thought she should be that she had forgotten to be the parent Michael and Emma needed her to be. Later that night, Sarah stood outside Michael's bedroom door. She could hear him talking quietly on the phone with his friend Jake. "My mom doesn't really listen to me," Michael was saying. "She just tells me what I should do and how I should feel. Sometimes I think she loves her rules more than she loves me." Sarah's heart broke. She had spent 12 years trying to be the perfect mother, but she had failed at the most important thing, making her son feel loved and understood. She knocked gently and entered the room. Michael quickly ended his call and looked up with worried eyes, probably wondering if he was in trouble for being on the phone past his bedtime. "Michael, we need to talk," Sarah said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Am I in trouble?" he asked, his voice small. Sarah took a deep breath.
"No, sweetheart.
"I'm the one who's in trouble. I found your letter." Michael's face went pale. "Mom, I'm sorry, I didn't mean." "No," Sarah interrupted, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm the one who's sorry. You have nothing to apologize for."
Ido.
For the first time in years, Sarah really looked at her son. not as a project to be managed or a problem to be solved, but as a person with his own thoughts, fears, and dreams. "Tell me about the math test," she said gently. Michael's eyes filled with tears. "I studied so hard, Mom, but I still failed. I was scared to tell you because I knew you'd be disappointed." Sarah's heart ached. Her son had been carrying this burden alone, afraid to come to the one person who should have been his safe place. "Michael, listen to me," Sarah said, reaching for his hands. "I will never be disappointed in you for struggling. I will only be disappointed if you don't feel safe enough to tell me when you're struggling." The dam broke. Michael began to cry, and for the first time in months, he let his mother hold him like the child he still was. "I don't want to play piano anymore," he whispered through his tears. "I know you think it's good for me, but I hate it. It makes me feel stupid." Sarah stroked his hair, her own tears falling. "Then you don't have to play piano anymore. What do you want to do instead?" "I want to learn to draw," Michael said, looking up at her with hope in his eyes. "I'm actually good at it, but I didn't think you'd care because it's not practical." Sarah thought about all the times she'd found Michael's drawings and told him to focus on his real homework instead. She had been so focused on preparing him for the future that she had forgotten to let him be a child in the present. "Show me your drawings," she said. Michael's face lit up as he pulled out a hidden folder from under his desk. Page after page of beautiful sketches filled the folder, landscapes, portraits, cartoon characters that showed real talent and passion. "These are incredible," Sarah whispered, and she meant it. "Why did you hide these from me?" "Because I thought you'd think they were a waste of time," Michael said quietly. Sarah realized she had created a home where her son felt he had to hide his gifts, his struggles, and his true self. In trying to be the perfect parent, she had become the kind of parent she never wanted to be. The next morning, Sarah called Emma into her room before school. Her daughter bounded in with her usual energy, but Sarah noticed something she had missed before: a wariness in Emma's eyes, a careful way of speaking that suggested she was always trying to avoid getting in trouble. "Emma, I want to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me," Sarah said. "Do you feel like you can tell me anything?" Emma's smile faltered. She was only 8, but she was smart enough to sense that this was an important moment. "I can tell you some things," Emma said carefully. "What about the other things?" Emma looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I'm scared you'll think I'm bad if I tell you everything." Sarah's heart broke all over again. Both of her children were walking on eggshells in their own home, afraid to be real with the person who was supposed to love them unconditionally. "Emma, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, you could ever do or say that would make me think you're bad," Sarah said firmly. "You are good exactly as you are, and I want to know everything about you: the happy things, the sad things, the things that scare you, the things that make you laugh. All of it." Emma's eyes widened. "Even if I did something wrong? Especially if you did something wrong. That's when you need me most." That weekend, Sarah did something she had never done before. Instead of hosting her usual perfectly organized playdate, she invited 3 of her closest mom friends over for coffee and honest conversation. "I need to tell you all something," Sarah began, her voice shaking. "I've been pretending to have it all figured out, but I'm failing my kids." She told them about Michael's letter, about the fear she had seen in both her children's eyes, about the realization that her pursuit of perfection had created a home where her kids felt they had to be perfect too. The response shocked her. "Sarah, I'm so relieved you said that," said Grace, mother of 3. "I've been feeling like such a failure compared to you. My kids are loud and messy, and sometimes I lose my temper, but when I'm with you, I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. I stopped inviting you to things because I was embarrassed about how chaotic my house is," admitted Jennifer, whose twin boys were known for their energy. "I thought you had some secret that I was missing." "My daughter asked me last week why I can't be more like Michael and Emma's mom," said Ruth sadly. "I didn't know what to say because I've been wondering the same thing." Sarah realized that her pursuit of perfection hadn't just hurt her own family. It had made other mothers feel inadequate too. She had been so focused on appearing to have it all together that she had forgotten the most important thing: authenticity. I don't want to be the perfect mom anymore, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. I want to be the mom my kids actually need. But I don't know how to change. Maybe we can figure it out together, Grace suggested. Maybe we can stop pretending and start being real with each other. For the first time in years, Sarah felt truly connected to other parents. Not because she was giving advice or appearing to have it all figured out, but because she was vulnerable and honest about her struggles. That afternoon, Sarah sat down with both her children and had the hardest conversation of her parenting life. I owe you both an apology, she began. I've been so focused on being a good parent that I forgot to be the parent you actually need. I made you feel like you had to be perfect, and that's not fair. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. Michael looked skeptical. Does this mean I don't have to do piano anymore? It means we're going to start making decisions together as a family, Sarah said. If you hate piano, we'll find something you love. If you're struggling with something, we'll figure it out together. And if you make mistakes, we'll learn from them together. Emma raised her hand tentatively. Can I tell you something I've been scared to tell you? Always, Sarah said. I accidentally broke your favorite vase last month. I was trying to water the plants to help you, but I knocked it over. I hid the pieces in the trash because I thought you'd be so angry. Sarah felt a familiar surge of frustration. That vase had been a wedding gift from her grandmother. But looking at her daughter's fearful face, she realized what mattered more. Emma, I'm sad about the vase because it was special to me, Sarah said honestly. But I'm much more sad that you were scared to tell me. A vase can be replaced, but trust can't. I don't want you to ever be afraid to tell me the truth. Emma burst into tears and threw her arms around her mother. I'm sorry, Mama. I wanted to help, but I messed up. That's what helpers sometimes do, Sarah said, holding her daughter close. They mess up while trying to do something good, and that's okay. Over the following weeks, Sarah began to deconstruct the rigid structure that had defined their family life. Piano lessons were replaced with art classes for Michael. Emma was allowed to have friends over without Sarah cleaning the house first. Family dinners became times for sharing the best and worst parts of their days, not just reviewing accomplishments and goals. The change wasn't easy. Sarah's perfectionist instincts fought against every relaxed rule and lowered standard. When Michael came home with a C+ on a test, her first instinct was to lecture him about studying harder. Instead, she asked, "How do you feel about this grade?" "I actually feel okay about it," Michael said. "I really tried my best and I understood most of the material. I'm getting better at math." Sarah realized that her son's relationship with learning was healthier than her own. He was focused on growth and understanding, not just grades and perfection. "I'm proud of you for trying your best," she said, and meant it. But the real test came when Sarah ran into another mother at the school pickup line. "I heard Michael dropped piano," the woman said with a disapproving tone. "Such a shame. He was getting so good, and you know how important music is for college applications." The old Sarah would have felt defensive and guilty. The new Sarah smiled calmly. "He's exploring art now," she said. "He's incredibly talented and passionate about it. I'm excited to see where it takes him." The woman looked surprised by Sarah's confidence. "But what about his future? Art isn't very practical." "His future will be built on his passions and talents, not on what other people think he should do," Sarah replied. "I'd rather have a happy, authentic child than a miserable, perfect one." As the months passed, Sarah began to see the fruits of her changed approach. Michael's grades actually improved because he was less anxious about disappointing her. Emma became more confident and creative, no longer afraid to take risks or make mistakes. Most importantly, both children began to open up to her about their real thoughts and feelings. But Sarah also discovered something unexpected. She was happier too. The constant pressure to be perfect had been exhausting her. Learning to be authentic and vulnerable had given her a freedom she hadn't felt in years. One evening, as Sarah was tucking Emma into bed, her daughter said something that made her pause. "Mom, I like our family better now." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "Before, it felt like we were always trying to be good enough for you. Now it feels like you like us just the way we are. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I have always loved you just the way you are. I just forgot to show it. Well, now you remember, Emma said with 8-year-old wisdom. And that makes me feel safe. Safe. That's what Sarah had been missing. She had created a home that looked perfect from the outside, but her children hadn't felt safe to be themselves inside it. But life, as it often does, had one more test for Sarah's new approach to parenting. It was a Tuesday morning when the phone rang. Michael's teacher, Mrs. Johnson, was calling to inform Sarah that Michael had been caught cheating on a science test. The old Sarah would have been mortified. She would have immediately begun planning Michael's punishment and figuring out how to fix the situation quickly and quietly. The new Sarah felt disappointed, but also curious. When Michael came home that afternoon, Sarah was waiting in the living room. Mrs. Johnson called me about the science test, she said calmly. Michael's face crumpled. Mom, I can explain. I hope you can, Sarah said gently, because I'd really like to understand what happened. Michael sat down heavily on the couch. I was so stressed about the test. I studied, but I still felt like I didn't know enough. When I saw Jake's paper, I panicked and looked at his answers. How are you feeling about what happened? Sarah asked. Terrible, Michael said, tears starting to fall. I know it was wrong. I know I disappointed you, and I feel like I disappointed myself too. Sarah's heart ached for her son, but she also felt proud. The fact that he felt disappointed in himself showed that he had internalized good values, not just fear of punishment. I'm disappointed that you made that choice, Sarah said honestly, but I'm not disappointed in you as a person. And I'm glad you feel disappointed in yourself. That means you know the difference between right and wrong. What's going to happen now? Michael asked. Well, you'll have to face the consequences at school. But at home, we're going to figure out how to help you manage stress better and how to ask for help when you're struggling. You're not going to punish me? The natural consequences of your choice are punishment enough, Sarah said. But we are going to work together to make sure this doesn't happen again. As Sarah navigated this challenge with Michael, she realized how much she had changed. Instead of seeing his mistake as a reflection of her parenting failures, she saw it as an opportunity to teach him about integrity, resilience, and the importance of asking for help. They worked together to create a study schedule that didn't overwhelm him. They practiced asking teachers for help when he didn't understand something. Most importantly, they talked about the difference between making a mistake and being a bad person. Everyone makes mistakes, Michael, Sarah told him one evening as they worked on homework together. The measure of a person isn't whether they mess up. It's how they handle it when they do. Do you make mistakes too, Mom? Michael asked. Sarah laughed. I make mistakes every day. The biggest mistake I ever made was thinking I had to be perfect for you and Emma to love me and respect me. We never needed you to be perfect, Michael said. We just needed you to love us. I'm still learning that lesson, Sarah admitted. Word of Sarah's transformation began to spread through their community. Other parents started approaching her, not for advice on how to have the perfect family, but for support in embracing their imperfect ones. Grace started a weekly coffee group for mothers who wanted to talk honestly about their parenting struggles. Jennifer began sharing her own challenges with her twin boys, finding that other parents had similar experiences. Ruth discovered that her daughter was actually relieved when she stopped trying to be like Michael and Emma's mom. The group became a safe space for parents to admit their fears, share their failures, and support each other through the messy reality of raising children. I used to think good parenting meant having all the answers, Sarah shared with the group one morning. Now I think it means being willing to admit when you don't know something and figuring it out together with your kids. But how do you know if you're doing it right? Asked a new mother who had joined the group. Sarah smiled. I think you're doing it right when your kids feel safe to be themselves around you. When they come to you with their problems instead of hiding them. When they know you love them not because they're perfect, but because they're yours. As Sarah's story spread, it began to impact not just her immediate community, but parents throughout Lagos and beyond. Social media posts about her journey resonated with thousands of parents who had been struggling with the same pressure to be perfect. But Sarah wasn't interested in becoming a parenting guru or expert. She had learned that the most powerful thing she could offer other parents was her honesty about her own struggles and growth. "I don't have parenting figured out," she would tell people who asked for advice. "I'm still learning every day. But I've learned that being real with my kids is more important than being right, and that love is more powerful than perfection." The impact on her own family continued to unfold. Michael's confidence grew as he pursued his art. Emma became more adventurous and creative. David found himself more relaxed and present with his family. But perhaps the most significant change was in Sarah herself. The woman who had once prided herself on having everything under control had discovered the freedom that comes from letting go. 6 months after Sarah's transformation, life felt good. Michael was thriving in art class, Emma was more confident than ever, and their home had become a place of laughter instead of stress. Sarah thought she had learned all there was to learn about being a better parent. She was wrong. It started with a phone call on a Thursday afternoon. Sarah was in the kitchen making snacks when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Lagos General Hospital. "Mrs. Williams, this is Dr. Adebayo. Your son Michael was brought in after collapsing at school. He's stable now, but we need you to come immediately." Sarah's world stopped. "Collapsing? What do you mean collapsing? We're running tests now. Please come as soon as you can." Sarah's hands shook as she called David and arranged for Emma to go to Grace's house. All her growth, all her new wisdom about being a calm, understanding parent, none of it mattered when her child was in danger. At the hospital, Sarah found Michael conscious but weak, lying in a bed that made him look smaller than his 12 years. Dr. Adebayo pulled Sarah and David aside. "We've run several tests," the doctor said gently. "Michael has type 1 diabetes. His blood sugar was dangerously high when he collapsed. This is a serious condition that requires immediate treatment and lifelong management." Sarah felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "Diabetes? But he's only 12. He's healthy. He plays soccer, Type 1 diabetes can develop at any age," Dr. Adebayo explained. "It's not caused by diet or lifestyle. It's an autoimmune condition where the body attacks its own insulin-producing cells." David asked the practical questions about treatment and management, but Sarah was stuck on one thought. How had she missed this? What kind of mother doesn't notice her child is seriously ill? That night, as Michael slept in his hospital bed, Sarah sat in the uncomfortable chair beside him and let the guilt wash over her. All those months of learning to be a better parent, and she had completely missed the signs that her son was sick. She thought back to the past few weeks. Michael had been tired more often. He'd been drinking more water. He'd even lost some weight, which Sarah had attributed to his growth spurt. How could she have been so blind? "Stop it," David said softly from the other chair. "I can see what you're thinking, and you need to stop." "I should have known," Sarah whispered. "I should have seen the signs." "Sarah, even his doctor said the symptoms can be subtle. You're not a medical professional. You're a mother who was paying attention to her son's emotional needs," which is exactly what he needed. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her old, more vigilant self would have caught this sooner. The next morning, Michael woke up to find his mother staring at him with red, worried eyes. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked, his voice still weak. "I should be asking you that," Sarah said, trying to smile. "How are you feeling?" "Scared," Michael admitted. "The doctors explained about the diabetes, but I don't really understand what it means for my life." Sarah's heart broke. Her son was facing a lifelong condition, and she didn't have the answers he needed. "We'll figure it out together," she said, the words feeling inadequate. "Mom, can I tell you something?" Michael said quietly. "Always. I'm glad this happened now, not 6 months ago." Sarah was confused. "What do you mean?" "6 months ago, I would have been scared to tell you when I felt sick or different. I would have tried to hide it because I wouldn't want to disappoint you. But now I know I can tell you anything, and you'll help me figure it out." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. In the midst of her guilt and fear, her son had just given her the greatest gift, the knowledge that her transformation as a parent had created the trust that might have saved his life. The next weeks were a crash course in diabetes management. Sarah and David learned about blood sugar monitoring, insulin injections, carbohydrate counting, and recognizing the signs of high and low blood sugar. Michael was a brave student, but he was also a 12-year-old boy who sometimes forgot to check his blood sugar or wanted to eat candy without calculating insulin doses. Sarah found herself torn between her new, relaxed parenting style and the very real need to monitor her son's health vigilantly. "I feel like I'm going backward," Sarah confided to Grace during one of their coffee meetings. "I'm back to being the hovering, controlling mother I worked so hard to change." "No, you're not," Grace said firmly. "You're being the mother Michael needs right now. There's a difference between controlling a child and protecting their health." But Sarah struggled to find the balance. When Michael's blood sugar was high one morning, she found herself snapping at him about following his meal plan. When he forgot to test before a meal, she felt the familiar surge of frustration. "I don't know how to be the supportive mother I want to be and the vigilant mother he needs medically," Sarah told David one evening. "Maybe you don't have to choose," David suggested. "Maybe you can be both." The answer came from an unexpected source, Michael himself. One afternoon, Sarah was reviewing his blood sugar log with him, pointing out patterns and areas where he needed to be more careful. She could feel herself slipping into lecture mode when Michael interrupted her. "Mom, can I tell you how I feel about all this?" Sarah stopped, remembering her commitment to listening. "Of course. I know you're scared," Michael said with surprising maturity. "I'm scared too. But when you get all stressed and controlling about my diabetes, it makes me feel like I'm broken or like I can't be trusted to take care of myself." Sarah's heart sank. "I don't think you're broken, sweetheart. I just want to keep you safe." "I know," Michael said, "but I need you to trust me to learn this. When you hover and check on me all the time, it makes me feel like you don't believe I can handle it. And that makes me want to hide things from you again." Sarah realized that her son was teaching her something profound about the difference between protection and control. She had been so afraid of making a mistake that she had started treating Michael like a problem to be managed instead of a person learning to manage a condition. That evening, Sarah sat down with Michael and had a different kind of conversation. "You're right," she said. "I've been so scared of something happening to you that I've been treating you like you can't handle your own condition. But you're the one living with diabetes, not me. You need to be the expert on your own body. Does that mean you're going to stop helping me?" Michael asked, looking worried. "No, it means I'm going to help you differently. Instead of managing your diabetes for you, I'm going to support you while you learn to manage it yourself." They worked together to create a plan. Michael would be responsible for testing his blood sugar and calculating his insulin doses. Sarah would be available for questions and support, but she wouldn't hover or micromanage. They would review his numbers together weekly, not as a judgment but as a learning opportunity. "What if I make mistakes?" Michael asked. "Then we'll learn from them together," Sarah said. "Making mistakes is part of learning, even with something as serious as diabetes." While Sarah and David were focused on Michael's diagnosis, Emma was quietly processing her own feelings about her brother's illness. She had always looked up to Michael, and seeing him in the hospital had scared her more than she let on. One evening, Emma came to Sarah with tears in her eyes. "Mom, am I going to get diabetes too?" she asked. Sarah realized that in all the focus on Michael's care, she hadn't adequately addressed Emma's fears. "It's possible, but not very likely," Sarah said honestly. "Type 1 diabetes can run in families, but most people who have a family member with diabetes don't get it themselves." "But what if I do?" Emma's voice was small. "Then we'll handle it the same way we're handling Michael's diabetes, together, with love and support," Sarah said. "But Emma, you can't live your life afraid of things that might not happen." They talked about the warning signs to watch for, and Sarah assured Emma that she could always come to her with questions or concerns. But she also made sure Emma knew that she was not responsible for taking care of Michael or for being perfect to make up for his illness. When Michael returned to school, Sarah faced a new challenge. The school nurse needed to be informed about his condition, his teachers needed to know the signs of low blood sugar, and Sarah had to trust that Michael would manage his condition independently while at school. The old Sarah would have wanted to control every aspect of Michael's school day. The new Sarah knew she had to trust both Michael and the school staff to handle things appropriately. But trust was tested when Michael called her from school one afternoon. "Mom, I feel really weird," he said, his voice shaky. "I think my blood sugar might be low, but I'm not sure." Sarah's first instinct was to panic and rush to the school. Instead, she took a deep breath. "Okay, where are you right now?" she asked calmly. "In the nurse's office." "Good. Is the nurse there?" "Yes, she's right here." "Can you put her on the phone?" The nurse confirmed that Michael's blood sugar was indeed low and that they were treating it appropriately. Within 20 minutes, Michael called back to say he was feeling better. "I'm proud of you for recognizing how you felt and getting help," Sarah told him when he got home. "I was scared," Michael admitted, "but I remembered what you said about trusting myself to handle things." Sarah realized that her son was developing not just the practical skills to manage his diabetes, but the confidence to trust himself, something that would serve him well throughout his life. 3 months after Michael's diagnosis, Sarah thought they had found their new normal. Michael was managing his diabetes well, Emma had adjusted to the changes in their routine, and Sarah had found a balance between support and independence. Then she got a call from Dr. Adebayo. "Mrs. Williams, I need to speak with you about Michael's recent lab results. Could you come in tomorrow?" Sarah's heart raced. "Is something wrong? Is his diabetes getting worse?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person," the doctor said, "but I want to assure you that Michael is not in any immediate danger." That night, Sarah barely slept. She had just learned to navigate one medical crisis with her son. The thought of facing another one felt overwhelming. The next day, Sarah and David sat in Dr. Adebayo's office, holding hands and preparing for bad news. "I have some unusual results to share with you," the doctor began. "Michael's most recent tests show that his body is starting to produce insulin again." Sarah blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means that Michael might be entering what we call a honeymoon phase of diabetes. Sometimes, after starting insulin therapy, the pancreas can recover some function temporarily." "So he might not have diabetes anymore?" David asked. "No, he still has diabetes," Dr. Adebayo explained, "but his insulin needs might decrease significantly for a while. This can last anywhere from a few months to a few years." Sarah felt confused and hopeful at the same time. "Is this good news or bad news?" "It's complicated news," the doctor said with a gentle smile. "It's good because it means Michael's body is responding well to treatment. But it's also challenging because his insulin needs will be unpredictable for a while." Over the following weeks, Sarah watched Michael's insulin needs fluctuate wildly. Some days he needed very little insulin. Other days he needed his full dose. The unpredictability was nerve-wracking for everyone. "I feel like I don't know my own body anymore," Michael confided to Sarah one evening after a particularly difficult day of managing his changing insulin needs. "That must be really scary," Sarah said, resisting the urge to offer solutions immediately. "It is," Michael said, "but you know what? I'm not as scared as I thought I'd be." "Why not?" "Because I know that even when I don't know what's happening with my body, I can trust you and Dad to help me figure it out, and I can trust myself to ask for help when I need it." Sarah realized that her son had just articulated something profound about resilience. It's not about having control over everything that happens to you, but about trusting that you can handle whatever comes your way. Word of Michael's diagnosis had spread through their community, and the response surprised Sarah. Instead of pity or awkwardness, their friends and neighbors offered practical support and genuine understanding. Grace organized a meal train for the first few weeks after Michael came home from the hospital. Jennifer researched diabetes-friendly recipes and shared them with Sarah. Ruth's daughter made a get-well card for Michael that made him laugh. But perhaps most meaningfully, other parents began sharing their own stories of navigating medical challenges with their children. "My daughter has severe asthma," one mother told Sarah. "I spent the first year after her diagnosis trying to control everything about her environment. I finally realized I was teaching her to be afraid of her own condition instead of confident about managing it. My son has ADHD, another parent shared. The hardest part wasn't the medication or the school accommodations. It was learning to see him as a capable kid with a condition to manage, not as a fragile child who needed to be protected from everything. Sarah realized that many parents were walking similar paths, learning to balance protection with empowerment, support with independence, vigilance with trust. As the months passed, Sarah's understanding of parenting continued to evolve. She had learned that being a good parent wasn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It wasn't even about preventing bad things from happening to your children. Being a good parent, she realized, was about being present for whatever came, creating a safe space for your children to be authentic, and trusting them to develop the skills they needed to navigate their own lives. One evening, as Sarah was helping Michael calculate his insulin dose for dinner, he looked up at her with a serious expression. "Mom, can I tell you something?" "Always."
I'm glad I have diabetes.
Sarah was stunned. "What do you mean?" I wish I didn't have to deal with all the medical stuff," Michael clarified. "But having diabetes taught me that I'm stronger than I thought I was. And it taught you that I'm stronger than you thought I was too." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You're absolutely right. And," Michael continued, "it taught our whole family that we can handle hard things together. That's pretty cool." 6 months after Michael's diagnosis, Sarah received a text from a mother she barely knew. The woman had heard about Sarah's journey and wanted to share her own story. "My daughter was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes," the text read. "I'm terrified and overwhelmed. I heard you might understand. Could we talk?" Sarah found herself sitting across from Lisa, a mother whose fear and desperation felt familiar. But as Sarah listened to Lisa's story, she realized something remarkable. She actually did have wisdom to share. "I know you're scared," Sarah said gently. "I was terrified too. But your daughter is going to be okay. More than okay. She's going to be strong and capable and confident. But first, you have to believe that about her." "How do you know?" Lisa asked through tears. "Because I've learned that kids rise to meet our expectations. If we expect them to be fragile and helpless, they'll be fragile and helpless. If we expect them to be strong and capable, they'll surprise us with their strength and capability." Sarah shared practical tips about diabetes management, but more importantly, she shared what she had learned about trusting your child, creating safety through acceptance rather than control, and finding strength in vulnerability. As Sarah drove home from her conversation with Lisa, she reflected on how much had changed in just 1 year. She had started as a mother who thought she had all the answers, learned that she didn't have any answers, and finally discovered that the best answers come from walking through challenges together with your children. That evening, she found Michael in his room, working on a drawing. It was a portrait of their family, but not the perfect, posed family she might have insisted on a year ago. In Michael's drawing, they were all laughing, slightly messy, clearly imperfect, and radiating love. "I like this," Sarah said, studying the picture. "It's how I see us," Michael said. "We're not perfect, but we're real. And we're happy." "We are happy," Sarah agreed. "Even with all the hard stuff." "Especially with all the hard stuff," Michael corrected. "The hard stuff is what made us close." That night, Sarah sat in her kitchen. The same kitchen where she had once sat with her world's best mom mug, believing she had parenting figured out. The mug was gone, broken months ago and never replaced. She didn't need it anymore. Sarah had learned that the best parents aren't the ones who never make mistakes or whose children never face challenges. The best parents are the ones who show up consistently, love unconditionally, and trust their children to grow into the strong, capable people they're meant to be. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma, who was sleeping over at a friend's house. "Mom, I had so much fun tonight. I told my friends about how you let me make mistakes and learn from them. They said they wish their parents were like you." Sarah smiled. She had spent years trying to be the perfect parent, only to discover that her children didn't need her to be perfect. They needed her to be present, authentic, and trusting. Another text came in, this one from Michael. Thanks for letting me be in charge of my own diabetes management. I feel really proud of how I'm handling it. Sarah realized that her greatest parenting victory wasn't preventing her children from facing challenges. It was raising children who felt capable of handling whatever challenges they faced. A year later, Sarah was invited to speak at a parenting workshop at Michael's school. She had never considered herself an expert on parenting, but other parents seemed to find value in her story. I don't have a perfect parenting method to share with you, she began her talk. I don't have 5 steps to raising successful children or 3 secrets to family happiness. What I have is a story about learning to parent with authenticity instead of perfection. She shared Michael's original letter, the one that had started her journey. She talked about learning to listen instead of lecture, to support instead of control, to trust instead of hover. The most important thing I learned, she concluded, is that our children don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be real. They need to know that we love them not because they meet our expectations, but because they're ours. And they need to know that we trust them to become the people they're meant to be. After her talk, a young mother approached her with tears in her eyes. I've been trying so hard to be the perfect mom, the woman said, but I'm exhausted, and I think I'm making my kids feel like they have to be perfect too. Sarah smiled, remembering her own journey. The good news is that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be brave enough to be real. As Sarah walked home from the workshop, she passed the park where she used to take Michael and Emma when they were younger. She remembered how she used to orchestrate their play, always worried about them getting dirty or hurt or making too much noise. Now she could see families playing together, some organized, some chaotic, all filled with love in their own way. She realized that there was no one right way to be a family, just as there was no one right way to be a parent. Her phone rang. It was Michael, now 13 and increasingly independent in managing his diabetes. Mom, I'm at Jake's house, and I'm not sure how much insulin to take for the pizza we're having. Can you help me figure it out? Sarah smiled. This was exactly the kind of call she had hoped for. Michael asking for help when he needed it, confident that she would support him without judgment. Of course, she said. Tell me about the pizza. As they worked through the calculation together, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was what good parenting looked like, not preventing your children from facing challenges, but being there to support them when they did. That evening, Sarah sat down to dinner with her family. Michael tested his blood sugar and calculated his insulin dose with confidence. Emma chattered about her day at school, sharing both her successes and her disappointments. David smiled as he watched his family navigate their evening routine with ease and joy. I have an announcement, Michael said suddenly. Everyone looked at him with curiosity. I entered my art in the school competition, and I won first place, he said, grinning. Sarah's heart swelled with pride. That's wonderful. Tell us about the piece you entered. It's called Family Portrait, Michael said. It's the drawing I did of us. You know, the one where we're all laughing and messy and real. I love that, Sarah said. What made you choose that one? Because it shows what I learned this year, Michael said. That the best families aren't the ones that look perfect from the outside. They're the ones that feel safe on the inside. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Her son had articulated something it had taken her years to understand. I'm proud of you, she said. Not just for winning the competition, but for creating something that shows how much you've grown. We've all grown, Emma added with 8-year-old wisdom. Remember when our family used to feel scary sometimes? Now it just feels like home. David reached across the table and squeezed Sarah's hand. I'm proud of all of us, he said. We became the family we were meant to be. As Sarah tucked Emma into bed that night, her daughter asked the question that had become their evening ritual. Mom, what was the best part of your day? Sarah thought about the workshop, about helping Lisa with her daughter's diabetes, about Michael's art victory, about this simple moment of connection with Emma. The best part of my day was realizing that I don't have to be the perfect mom, Sarah said. I just have to be your mom. And that's more than enough. Emma smiled sleepily. You're the best mom for us, she said. Not because you're perfect, but because you love us perfectly. As Sarah turned off the light and closed Emma's door, she reflected on the journey that had brought her family to this place. It had started with a letter hidden under a mattress, a letter that had shattered her illusion of perfect parenting. But that letter had given her something far more valuable than perfection. It had given her authenticity, connection, and the deep joy that comes from being truly known and loved by your children. Sarah no longer needed to be the perfect parent. She had learned to be the parent her children actually needed. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. 2 years later, Sarah found Michael's original letter while cleaning out old school papers. She read it again, remembering the pain it had caused her and the transformation it had sparked. She knocked on Michael's door, now decorated with his artwork and diabetes management supplies. "Michael, I found something that belongs to you," she said, holding out the letter. Michael read it and smiled. "I remember writing this. I was so angry and scared back then." "How do you feel reading it now?" Sarah asked. "Grateful," Michael said without hesitation. "If I hadn't written that letter, and if you hadn't found it, I might never have learned that I could trust you with my real feelings. And you might never have learned that we didn't need you to be perfect." Sarah hugged her son tightly. "That letter was the best thing that ever happened to our family." "No," Michael said, pulling back to look at her. "Finding it was the best thing that ever happened. But what made the difference was what you did after you found it." Sarah smiled, understanding her son's wisdom. It wasn't the crisis that had changed their family. It was how they had chosen to respond to it. "I love you, Michael," she said, "just exactly as you are." "I love you too, Mom," he replied. "Just exactly as you are." And in that moment, Sarah knew that she had finally learned the secret to being a good parent. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being real, being present, and being brave enough to love your children exactly as they are while trusting them to become exactly who they're meant to be. Remember, the best parents aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who show up consistently, love unconditionally, and trust their children to grow into the strong, capable people they're meant to be. Share your own parenting story in the comments below. What moment changed how you see parenting? What lesson did your children teach you? Let's support each other on this beautiful, messy journey of raising the next generation.